Okay. We were talking about 5 different economic theories as forms of government, and we made it through 4 of them. The last being bureaucracy. Yes.
Bureaucratic system. That's why efficient is not S.
Okay.
The only thing efficient is
The 5th economic theory as a form of government is capitalism. Capitalism. Okay, now, to define that for you, we would say there's a belief in an infinite amount of wealth in the world, as opposed to a mercantilist that says there's a finite amount of wealth. A capitalist would say there's an infinite amount of wealth in the world. So you don't have to go out and conquer people. Okay? You can create it yourself. Okay? So, an infinite amount of wealth in the world. Supply and demand control the free market. Competition is good. You guys might remember this. Laissez-faire economics, okay? LAISSEZ dash FAIRE. Laissez-faire. LAISSEZ. Which means hands off, or the invisible hand of government. Now, we all know who is the person that came up with the economic theory known as communism. All American students know that. Raise your hand if you remember who we credit with the theory of capitalism. Got a couple hands going up. First name? No. No. Adam. Adam what? Smith. Mr. Schwartz would be proud of him. Because he taught you all this. He did. Now, I'm proud because I had one student, the second hour that knew that, and at least one student in fourth hour that knew that. Now, wouldn't it make sense, since we use capitalism in the United States, that every American student would know who we credit with the economic theory of capitalism through his work, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith?
You just like to shame her. Karl Marx is so much cooler. Adam Smith.
Adam Smith? No one's going to remember that.
That's
Right.
basic.
That's like the most generic double first name there is.
Yes. Okay. Now, when we talk about the invisible hand of government with laissez-faire, or the light hand of government, obviously we need regulation, right? So unfettered capitalism, which is driven by greed, okay? And Milton Friedman talked about greed yesterday, yes? When he said, oh, it's the other guy that's greedy. It's not me that's greedy. The other guy that's looking out for his own self-interest, I'm not really looking out for my self-interest. I'm selfless. Okay, which is a bunch of crap. Okay, now some of you may have big bleeding hearts, and you want to give everything that you have to others. Okay, and not really worry about your own self-interest. Okay? God bless you. But most of us aren't like that. Now, unfettered capitalism with greed can lead to people preying upon other people, yes? People abusing other people, like child labor, okay? Or unsafe working conditions. What was the one with the radioactive ladies, right? Radium girls, yeah. Okay, that sort of thing, right? So we need the hand of government to be involved with regulating, controlling it, capitalism. But what we don't want is the hands of government to strangle and prevent the free flow of commerce. You don't want it to get too much in the way of progress, of productivity. Yes? So these are the debates we have in Washington, D.C. and Topeka. All right, what regulations are we going to put on business, on human beings, which run businesses? Okay? So that's what we fight about. Mr. Swords thinks we should have more regulation. Mr. Ubright feels like we got enough. Okay? Maybe too much. We have these debates. Okay? Now, you have two cows. You sell one and buy a bull. What do? The cow and the bull. They make babies. Calves, yes? No, a stud, I should say. Yes? You buy a stud, okay? Now, Gold, help me out here. Do we want the bull that mated with this cow to mate with his children? No. So I'm going to give you my bull, and you give me your bull. And you can use my bull to mate with your children cow, and I can use your bull to mate with my children cow. We'll just trade. Yeah? Soon we have cattle. Now, some of these cattle we're going to milk. Yes? And with that milk, you can make dairy products like cheese and butter. Yes? And if you have more cheese, butter, and milk than your family can consume, what can you do with those products? You can sell them. And if you have enough cattle, you can hire a no adult to come work on your farm, on your ranch, and pay him money to milk the cows. You just created a what? A job. Now, Mr. Gold saves his money. He's very frugal with his money. And he starts buying some chickens. And he starts chicken farming. Now, all these farmers and ranchers are going to need somebody to deliver the goods they're producing to the store. So they hire a truck driver. They just created another job. Now, that truck driver works really hard, long hours, saves his money, buys a second truck, hires another driver, and before long, this guy owns a trucking company. He is creating wealth. The farmer is creating wealth. Governments don't create wealth. Governments redistribute income. This is what turned the United States into the greatest economic force that the planet has ever seen. More people have been brought up out of poverty on this planet by capitalism than any other form of government known or economic system known to man. Go.
What economic system is like
They have capitalism and they have more socialism than we have. Yeah. And they used to practice mercantilism. A lot of it. Yeah. So if you take a look at China today, the Chinese aren't stupid, right? They realize that communism as an economic system doesn't function. It doesn't create wealth. So in China, you can own your own business. Okay, they understand this. Now, you might have to pay some people off. There's corruption and so forth. You got to be in bed with the Communist Party and so forth. Okay, so our system allows somebody like a no adult works on a farm to save his money and invest it in himself. Okay. Now, all of you guys, I assume, are going to college next year, right? So what are you going to study? Right? Yes. So when I graduate with a degree in 4 years, or maybe sooner for some of you, do I need to continue my education and get a master's? How many of you guys are thinking about studying business? Done this? Right? Get your MBA. Yes? These sorts of things. So, guys, you will be paid based on your value. Now, in the United States of America, how do we value our teachers? Not very high. Because if we valued our teachers more, you would pay them more, and you would get more talented people in the classroom. Yes? Now, you might get some awkward people that have no interpersonal skills that are really smart that want to make good money being a teacher. And you will have those professors in college that don't know how to communicate with you. And you can't understand them because your calculus teacher may be from India. You'd be like, what did he say? What? My wife talks about that. I mean, it was like, yeah, nobody can understand it. He's speaking English, but I can't understand it. Okay? So, no, we don't put a high value on it. What do we put a high value on in this society? Doctors, lawyers, athletes at the high level. CEOs, finance, guys, finance. You want to make money, you're going to study business, study finance. Okay? Don't study marketing unless you're talented, right? You have some particular set of skills. Okay? But you'll be paid on your value. Okay? And I like to use my wife here as an example. Okay? She's a chemical engineer. She went to Virginia Tech, which is a very good engineering school. Okay? Then she went to, while she was working, got her MBA at LSU. That's a good business school. Not top ranked, but a good business school. Okay? She has over 30 years of experience. She's a project manager. She works on projects, $100 million, $400 million projects that she's in charge of. Coke industry values her. You understand? And those of you guys that are thinking about engineering, you get a 4-year degree. A 4-year degree. Where Lily's going to school, they said the average student with a 4-year degree comes out making $73,000 their first year. And they have a 99% or 95% placement within 6 months of graduation. So I'm like, dude, all right, Lily, you know, we can probably help with the first 2 years. You're going to probably have to pay back some of the next 2 years because it's so freaking expensive. Okay, but she'll be able to do that. Yes. So if you're good at math, people, you're not sure what you want to study yet, you ought to take a look at engineering. We do not graduate enough engineers here. You're going to find a job. So with a 4-year degree, the kind of money you can make, yeah. You're doing engineering? What kind? Yes. That's going to be around. Yes? And you're doing chemical. Now, you may be limited on where you can live based on the specific degree you get. Now, chemical, you're pretty free to kind of go anywhere in the country. Okay. But if you want to get into petroleum and so forth, Houston, you're going to find a job like that, chemical engineering. And ladies, they'll hire you before they hire these two. Sorry, guys. My wife works in a man's world. Almost everybody she works with is a male. Okay, they do have some, some women. But in fact, one of my former students and baseball players from Bishop Carroll, he's an engineer, and he just got a job in my wife's group. A kid named Blake Newell, played baseball for me. Newell, yeah. Good kid, man. That's awesome. She's worked actually with several former students of mine that have worked for her at Govt, or in her group. Carter Dooling, Weber, is it Weber that she works with? Yeah, so. Yeah, okay, sorry. Capitalism. Guys, come on now. There are people in our society in Generation Z that are being taught that capitalism is evil. Okay, you can decide for yourself. Okay, but I'm sorry, guys. I don't buy that. Okay, we do need the hand of government. Okay, we'll debate about what regulations we should have and which ones we shouldn't. But it works. Okay, now let me just do this. Okay, you guys, some of you guys have seen this, right? It's like at a church camp or something. Okay, this video, right? Now I'm going to save that. I'll get to that. All right, we're done with capitalism right now. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about, and this is the last part of the objective portion of the test. Okay, from here on out, we're moving to the essay. Okay. It's a lot. We're going to look at the five basic concepts of American democracy. 5 basic concepts of American democracy. This is not essay.
Okay.
This is objective. Now, sorry. Hey, before I forget, again, I've put 2 assignments on today. Have you seen them? Okay, page 15. Now, I would have done this earlier, but I was gone and then you were gone. 15 through 19. Part of the notes while you were gone, we looked at the 4 origins of a state, theories of origin of a state. It was force theory, evolutionary theory, divine right theory, and social contract theory. So tomorrow we are going to dive in deep on the social contract theories of Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. Okay? You're going to read this tonight and be prepared to discuss it tomorrow. Based on that discussion, the class will be rewarded with participation points between 5 and 15. Okay? If you guys blow my head off with a great discussion, then you'll get 15 out of 15. If I got to drag it out of you, you can highlight in here, you can write in here. These are your books. So, I'm going to ask you things like, what was the main crux of this theory? Okay, what really stood out to you about this person's theory? Okay, that sort of thing, and then we're going to discuss it. Okay, there is John Locke's second treatise on civil government. That is written in 1660. It's written in English. There are 5 questions. These are optional. Okay, so I put that on the Canvas today as well. So you'll answer those, turn those in on Canvas. Those are due before class tomorrow. Okay, so I mean, if I have it shut off at midnight, but you'll turn it in late as long as it's in by class tomorrow. Okay. Yes.
You said that's optional.
Yes, it's optional. Now, listen. You'll do your best on that, those 5 questions. You'll just do your best. Okay, so if I look at it and I'm like, okay, you tried to answer that question, then you'll get credit. Okay, because you may not have the right answer. Because it's written in English, 1660. So some of the terminology and stuff is a little challenging. You might read it twice. Now, some of you will get it. Most of you will have to work your way through it. Okay. Is that good? Okay, so you got 2 assignments. One is the mandatory reading. The other is the optional questions from the Second Treatise on Civil Government. Okay? Which, by the way, guys, is 2 pages. I have the copy. It's much longer than that somewhere. Okay? So you're just getting an excerpt of it. Okay, not the full text. Now, all right. So the 5 basic concepts of American democracy. Number 1, fundamental worth of the individual. The fundamental worth of the individual. Everyone's dignity should be upheld in our system of government. Okay? People should be treated with respect by the government, by the law, and hopefully by each other. We can't legislate that. But under the view of the government, there's a fundamental worth of every individual. Okay? Now, have you guys ever heard this term, rugged individualism? Have you guys heard this before? Okay. Now listen. Most of the people that populated this country at the beginning were Anglo-Saxons. They were from Britain. Yes? And because Britain had changed over to the Anglican Church, the vast majority of people that came here were Protestants. Okay? Catholics came here. Okay? Many of the first Catholics that came were Irish. And they were brought here, many of them as indentured servants, as labor. Okay? Father Andrew just gave me this book. He just finished reading it. And Liberty's Lions, the Catholic revolutionaries who helped establish America. Okay? I just this morning picked this up and read like the first 8 pages, and it's really good so far. So he starts with a slave rebellion in 1790s in South Carolina. Now these slaves were from the Congo, they were Congolese, all right? Some of those slaves were Catholic and had a great reverence for Mary. Okay, so there's a theory, there's different competing theories, just first 8 pages here, on whether their Catholic beliefs, the religious beliefs, helped lead to this revolt, because there were not a lot of slave revolts. Okay, and the ones that survived the revolt were trying to escape to Spanish-controlled Florida, and of course the Spanish were Catholic. Yes, so it looks like it's gonna be a really good book. Okay, and I know a little bit about this as well because you guys know there was one Catholic that signed the Declaration of Independence. You guys know his name? His name was Charles Carroll. And he, which was my grandfather's name, by the way, Charles Carroll Ebright. Okay. He came from a super wealthy family from Ireland. Okay, so Charles Carroll was literally one of the richest men in the colonies. Okay, that's why they let him participate. That he was very well educated. He was educated both at Oxford, in England, and in Paris. So he had the Enlightenment from both sides here. Okay, of the Protestant and Catholic. So an amazing figure to study. There's a book called American Cicero on Charles Carroll that Father Eric Weldon let me read. Okay, so priests are giving me books to read. Okay, so it's great. No, but this would be very handy for my classes. I'm excited about reading this. Yeah, Eric Weldon, the former military chaplain. Yeah, love that. Yeah, he's so down to earth. Yeah. See, guys, when I started teaching at Carroll, I mean, obviously I'm not Catholic, so I'd never been around a priest. So first of all, I'm intimidated. Okay, and I'm like, okay, how do I address this person? You know, we got Father Orr, and I'm like, I'm in the faculty lounge, and Father Orr walks in, and he's got the mouth of a sailor, and I'm like, priests are allowed to cuss? I know my pastor over at the Presbyterian Church, he doesn't do that. Okay. Oh, and they drink?
Yeah, we like to drink.
Oh, they drink too. I don't think my pastor over at the Evangelical Presbyterian Church does. I don't know if he does or not. Cigars.
Yeah, cigars, a lot of tobacco.
Yeah, you know, so, yeah, and then Father Weldon came in. He loves baseball. So we hit it off really well. I really enjoy it. And I understand, like, there were people that had issues with Father Orr, Father Weldon. They you know, they have their opinions, and, you know. I love Father Ed. I mean, yeah, I don't know what you got. I sit down and talk to Father Ed all freaking day long, and have. I love him. He's awesome. Right? So anyhow, sorry, I got it. The individual, guys, this rugged individualism. No, but seriously, guys, there's a thing called a Protestant work ethic. Okay, I don't know if you've ever heard this. Okay, but most of the people that lived here were Protestants. Okay, and so you've got to, when you look at America and who we are as a people, we do hold the individual at a high level here. Okay, now it's a little bit different with the Catholic community. And you know how I just phrased that. Well, how did I just say that? I said community versus the individual. You guys following me on this, okay? So how many guys have ever heard of Alexis de Tocqueville? I gotta talk to Ferris. Okay. Alexis de Tocqueville came to the United States in the late 1700s, early 1800s. And he traveled across this country, and he wrote about what he saw. And he wrote this, Democracy in America. And he gave an outsider's view of who we are as a people. Now, back then, almost everybody went to church, you understand. Okay? And the free enterprise system that was creating an economic juggernaut by that time. The Europeans got a picture of who we were as well. Now, most of the people in this room, your ancestors came from Europe. Do we have anybody in here that has Native American blood in them that you're aware of? Okay, so, and then we have a couple students from Southeast Asia. We have, I don't have any Hispanic students in here right now. Any of you guys got some Hispanic in you? Okay. Yeah. So, listen, I love talking about this. I know it's kind of silly and kind of cheesy. But listen, all of our ancestors came here from somewhere else. Now, when my Ebrights came, they came in 1740. Was it considered a really safe trip to sail across the Atlantic in 1740? What about the migrant that comes across the desert of Mexico to sneak into the United States across the Rio Grande River? They taking a risk to do that, leaving everything behind? What about the Vietnamese boat person, right? That gets on a boat in the South China Sea, not knowing what their fate will be, leaving everything they love behind, the people they love behind, risking their life. The Cuban that builds a raft that tries to get the 90 miles to the Florida Keys. We all share that in common. That's all in our DNA. All of us. All of our families. That makes us different. Are we as refined as our European friends? Especially the French? No, we're not as refined. We are rugged. We like guns. We like fast cars. We're different. We are a different race, the American people. Okay? And put like that, that melting pot that we have, right? When you put it like that, I don't know. I think it's awesome. And we are a people of risk takers. All of us. Somebody in our family took a big risk to come here, leaving everything behind. All of us share that in common. That makes us exceptional, in my opinion. So I'm glad everybody's here. How fortunate we are to have the opportunities we have in this country. Do we have our faults, our sins? Of course we do. But guys, if we are a racist nation, why are brown and black people trying to come here if we're so racist? I mean, would you want to go somewhere that you knew the people didn't want you there? Would you trust that they would accept you when you got here? Eventually, they would accept you. Remember when I talked about Coach Lawbone's grandfather? Came from Russia. We didn't want him here. You know what I mean? But Coach Lawbone's just like everybody else now. You know what I mean? Okay. All right. Fundamental. Now, here's a philosophical question. Do we subordinate the welfare of the majority for the interest of a single person in this country? You support, let me try and rephrase that again, okay? Can the welfare of one person, can you subordinate the interests of the many for the welfare of one in this country? The answer is yes. And we do it, right? We did it with the mask mandates at the beginning. Everybody wore a mask because we knew there were people that had comorbidities that if they got infected, they could die, right? Now, as time went on and we learned more and more about this, people began to challenge these ideas about the effectiveness of these masks and so forth. And then we got the vaccines, which helps prevent hospitalization, okay, with people that have comorbidities as well. So we've moved away from that here, at least, okay? The answer is yes, we do that from time to time. We subordinate the welfare of the many for one person. But when it comes to your rights, we don't. So for instance, because gun crime is so high in the United States, we could do away with people's Second Amendment rights and take away their guns. But we don't do that. We don't take the right of a woman who has a stalker from buying a gun to defend herself against a stalker. We don't take away that right for the interests of the many. We don't take away the rights of the many because somebody was a victim of gun crime. When it comes to your rights, no. Okay? But in many cases, we do this all the time. Okay? I get taxed. Somebody that doesn't make as much money as I do doesn't get taxed. I'm paying for it. And we do that all the time. Okay? Would it be nice if I didn't have as much taxes? I could keep more of my money? Sure. Okay. Number 2. The equality of all persons. The equality of all persons. We have a history here. Yes? Where we did not respect the equality of all persons. Now, it's in our founding document that all men are created equal. Okay? Okay, so we're talking about equality under the law? Are we talking about equality of opportunity? Or are we talking about equality of outcome? So, 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law for all citizens. We had Jim Crow and segregation nearly a century. We were not doing that. Today, we are doing a much better job at that. Here, as a society, we try and provide an equal opportunity to all citizens to pursue their own happiness. Now, I'm coming back over here. So I saw this video. It was trending for a while. They took this church camp, I believe. They told these students to line up on the starting line. Okay, and they said, okay, take 2 steps forward if you have 2 parents at home. 2 steps forward. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to worry about your next meal, where that's going to come from. Take 2 steps forward if your parents have a job. Okay. Here's the starting line. We can't control what situation we're born into, right? As a child. Yes? So, is it the role of government to bring everybody here? Is that the role of our government? Or is the role of government to try and provide an opportunity by the time you reach 18 to get to here? Now, we're going to provide assistance to that child in the form of Medicaid, healthcare, welfare programs to help people feed their kids and so forth. Okay? But an outcome, that's going to be up to the individual. Or we could adopt communism and do this. Okay? This is the most important, right? We need to provide good public schools so that those kids, when they graduate from high school, have the skills necessary to go out and compete in a capitalistic system. How are we doing? How are we doing with that? Right? We talked about this in history, right? Probably the most important thing we do as a nation is educating our youth. Okay, giving them opportunities. Okay. Now we're starting to see it. Remember when we did school vouchers, school choice? I think we're up to about 4 states this year that have said that education dollars will follow the student. Will not go to the school. They will follow the student. Wherever the student takes those dollars, those education dollars go with them. Yeah. I have to look it up. I don't want to say the wrong states. Both. I think Pennsylvania. Yes. Okay. So I have to search it. So again, I think, as a society, we have to pick and choose what we care most about. Equality of all persons under the law is so important that we have a just society. Okay. And I think we've made enormous progress there. We all have due process. Okay. So under the law, everybody has due process. So once you encounter an agent of the government, there are certain rules that they have to follow. Okay? And if they charge you with a crime, there is a process that everyone is due. Okay? All right. The third basic concept of American democracy. Majority rules and minority rights. Majority rules and minority rights. Most decisions in a democracy are made by the majority, yes? Is the majority always right? No, they're not. We make mistakes as a society, okay? But we can say this much, though, that when they do make the decision, that is the decision that is the most pleasing to the most people at the time, right or wrong. The United States Senate is a place where you need a supermajority. Okay? So there's 100 senators to pass most pieces of legislation. You need 60 of them to pass them because of the filibuster. Okay? 60 votes ends a filibuster and allows a vote to take place. Okay? Filibuster delays the passage of legislation. Doesn't allow for a vote. Okay? I'll get into that more. But in most other areas around the country, at local, state, and national level, you're looking at 51% makes the decision. Okay? Now, that being said, the majority can mistreat a minority, yes? Have we done that? Yeah. So, I want you to think about this. Now, Caucasians make up the majority of the United States today. That number is shrinking rapidly. Okay? So Caucasians need to think about this. If we do not secure the rights of the minority today, when we become the minority, will our rights be protected? Yeah? So guys, the average married couple produces less than 2 children per couple in the United States. It might be like 1.7 on average. Yeah, I know. How do you have 1.7 children? Okay, I get it. Japan is worse. Europe is bad. In the industrialized Western world, we are not reproducing fast enough to grow the population. So the U.S. population is growing through immigration, okay, and through higher birth rates of those immigrants. Okay, white people are not reproducing at a rate that's sustainable. I have one sister. My parents had 2 kids. She has no kids, my sister. My wife has 1 brother. Him and his wife have no kids. Now, Catholics are doing a pretty good job of, keeping the ball rolling here. Okay. Now, guys, I want you to, can I just be personal here with you? I'm older, so I have a lot of life experience, okay? And I've had many joys in my life. Many joys. But nothing compares to raising my children. It gives you so much meaning in life. It's quite wonderful. Now, kids aren't perfect and they're expensive. And guys, ladies, your whole existence changes. Like, hey, it's Friday or it's Saturday, going out with the boys. No, you're not. You're staying home. Now, maybe once or twice a month you might get out. Like last night, we got up with some teachers and we went to the basketball. Went out for dinner before the game. It was fun. My wife had a church meeting, so she wasn't home. So I'm like, I'm going to go do something too. Once or twice a month, maybe. Now then the kids grow up. It's a little easier, but if you have a whole litter of them, that takes a long time. But people don't want to give up their freedoms to these little road rats. I'm just here to tell you guys, it's joyful to have kids. It's wonderful. I am so much going to miss it. Well, Lily's going off to college. I'm going to have an empty nest. Bergen's leaving his mom and dad alone. Are any of you guys the youngest? Your parents talk about this? Or they're just like, thank God. No, yeah. So I just want to share that with you on a personal level, guys. Everybody's going to choose their vocations and so forth, okay? But it's quite wonderful. Okay. Hey, and I'll tell you this: the right place to raise your kids is in the church. All right. The fourth basic concept of American. Are we out of time? Doggone it, you guys! Stop letting me get off track like this. 5 minutes. It's Wednesday. Necessity of compromise. I'll look right now. Oh, we got all kinds of stuff. This is fun. And these are pretty short, right? So, okay. Necessity of compromise. Obviously, guys, the majority is going to rule. Yeah. Necessity of compromise. Obviously, the majority is going to get their way. Yes? But oftentimes, there's multiple solutions to a problem, and people need to understand that. Okay? Now, talk about compromise. Are there any issues that, like, no, there's no compromise? Say what? Yeah, like slavery. That's not a compromisable issue. Oh, they did. They did. But today, it's not. And we're talking about human beings, right? We're talking about owning. No. There's no compromise on that. Human trafficking? No. Now, what about abortion? Let me ask you this. Those of you that are strongly pro-life. All right, we know the Democratic Party's platform is pro-choice, okay? So Democrats are in charge, okay? And what the Democrats want to do, they want to tax Elon Musk more, okay? So we're going to let you tax the rich, the super rich, 10% more than you do now. If you give us a nationwide ban on partial birth abortion. Take the compromise. It's a baby step in the right direction. Pun intended.
Wait, what's the compromise? We're taking from the rich and we're also getting our.
Those no late-term abortions.
Oh, I understand.
Nationwide.
So it's federal.
Yes. That's a compromise. Yes. Now the problem in Washington today, and I hope I set a good example for you guys, that when we have disagreements with each other on policy, that at least we'll listen to each other. Okay? In Washington, they don't listen to each other. They don't talk to each other. Think about this. Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi had a complete disdain for each other. You understand? You go back to Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, O'Neill, the Democrat Speaker of the House, and Ronald Reagan, the president. In the media, they would bash on each other and their policies and so forth, but it never got personal. And then they would go to dinner together and work out compromises with each other. Now, Reagan had the power. He was the president. He was popular. So O'Neill knew he had to kind of work with it. Okay? When you have divided government, as we have had recently, where the majorities between the Republicans and Democrats are very small, it's hard to have a mandate to rule, to govern. Biden doesn't have that. Okay? And if trends hold up come November, Republicans will control both the most likely the House and probably the Senate as well. And Biden, for his last 2 years of this term, will be forced to work with Republicans. Biden was in the Senate for decades. Who should know how to work with the other side? Biden should. He's been there and done it for years. Decades. A half a century. Okay? So those wheels are spinning in the White House right now. You know what I mean? Like his staff is like, okay, what are we going to do? He's got things he wants to do, but can he get them passed? Well, work out some freaking compromises. I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. Let's work it out. Okay? All right. The fifth is individual freedom. Individual freedom. Absolute freedom would be what? Anarchy. So the social contract that we're going to talk about, we're going to give up some of our freedom so we don't live in anarchy. I've got 2 quotes for you. You don't need to know them for the test. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes said this about individual freedom. He said, the right for me to swing my fist ends where your nose begins. JFK said this. Kennedy said, when the rights of one man are threatened, the rights of all men are in danger. I kind of paraphrase that. The rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. JFK. Makes sense. Okay. All right. Hope you got some out of that. Don't forget to do your reading tonight.
What exactly are we reading?
Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. The second treatise is optional. And the questions are optional. We don't have a lot of points in here, so if you want to get some points, you get 10 points for that. Turn that in on campus.
Were you ever worried that you were gonna mess them up?
Oh yeah. Thank God for my wife. And the church. You know what I mean? Like, my kids have had great mentors. I mean, they went to Christian school too. And when I say it was a Christian school, I mean, so they have a good foundation, you know, and it's amazing. I mean, I have good kids. Like, my son isn't like self-motivated. He doesn't understand hard work, except when it comes to sports, which hopefully at some point is just going to, flip over into real life. You know what I mean? In the classroom. But I know he's got a good heart. He's a good human being. He treats others with dignity. He's a very fair person. And I'm like, dude, that's amazing that he's like that. I'm like, I love it, And not all of our people turn out like that. But, and then you guys know, she's self-motivated. So, yeah, I worry about that for sure. But, I think the private school system, both my wife and I went to public school. Most people did, still do. It's different today than it was in the
Have you ever watched the Ghostbusters?
No. Okay. I didn't know there was one. I'll look that up.
See you in the street, right?
Have a good one.